Hello viewers, you're welcome back to School Virtual Learning Platform. My name remains Mr. Emmanuel, the Economics Tutor. At School, we offer you interesting learning experiences, all that comes to you at the comfort of your home. We have various video lessons that you will be able to subscribe to shortly to help you prepare for both your school exams as well as external exams. As you enjoy this class, be kind enough to tell your friends. And guess what? As you bring your friends to register and be part of these classes, we have special, awesome rewards waiting for you. In our previous class, we started with questions from 2011 past WAEC questions. And in this class, we will continue from question number 26 to 50. You can follow us on our social media platform to get to know about our various services and our promotional offers, as well as fun learning facts. On Facebook and Instagram, we are at instaschool_edu. And on Twitter, we are at instaschool. Again, on Instagram and Facebook, we are at instaschool_edu. And on Twitter, we are at instaschool. Okay, so let's get to work. Question number 26. This says frictional unemployment can be reduced by dash. Is it by encouraging the use of retaining scheme, or by removing barriers to labor mobility, or restricting the introduction of new technology, or lowering the level of wages paid to young people? First, we need to know what frictional unemployment is before we know how to reduce it. Frictional unemployment is the unemployment that occurs as a result of people leaving one job to another. So the space of time between when they left a job and when they are able to get another job is what we call frictional unemployment. Having said that, how do we reduce that? Is it to reduce the amount of money paid to young people? That would not help. Option C says restricting the introduction of new technology. Whether there is new technology or not, it still does not close that gap. Option B says removing barriers to labor mobility. Now, why this is not correct is because labor mobility can be two ways. It can be from one career to another, or from one place to another. So it's not clearly the most suitable option. Option A says encouraging the use of retaining scheme. A retaining scheme is one that would make workers stay on their job, so you don't have to leave one job to another. Question 27. If the labor force in a country is 2.5 million and 2 million are employed, what is the unemployment rate? If the labor force in a country is 2.5 million and 2 million are employed, what is the unemployment rate? Now, to get our unemployment rate, we have to get the number of people who are not employed. The number of people who are not employed, and express it as the percentage of the people who are in the country. So, to get the people who are not employed, we will have to deduct the people who are employed, which is 2 million, from the labor force in the country, which is 2.5 million. So 2.5 million minus 200 minus 2 million would give us 500,000. Now divided by the total number of people in the country, which is 2.5 million. So these 3 cancels these 3. These 2 cancels these 2. And 5 divided by 25 is 0.2. So times 100. Remember we said express it as a percentage. So 0.2 times 100 is 20%. So our correct answer is 20%. Option B. Option B. Again, we get the number of people who are not employed. That is 2.5 million minus 2 million, which is 500,000. Then divided by the number of people in the country expressed in percentage. That is times 100 over 1. Question 28. The grouping of population according to the economic activities people engage in is dash. The grouping of population according to the economic activity that they engage in, that is, according to their occupation, is the age distribution, sex distribution, geographical distribution, or occupational distribution. Age distribution means grouping of people according to their age grade. Sex distribution means distributing people according to their gender, male or female. Geographical distribution means grouping them according to the region or which area they stay. While occupational distribution means the grouping of a population according to the work or the economic activities that they do. So our correct answer is option D. Option D, occupational distribution. Question 29. Natural growth rate of a population can be defined as dash. The difference between birth rate and death rates, or the number of births in a year, or the increase in the population growth in a year, or the difference between the total population and death rates. Now, the natural growth rate is the growth rate of a country by natural causes. Now, normally we would have said it is the birth rate because that's the natural way people, the population would grow. But then people also die, which is a natural way of reducing the population growth. So the natural growth rate is the difference between the growth rate and the death rates. So our correct answer is option A. Option A. Question number 30. Which of the following is not a consequence of increased unemployment? Which of the following is not a consequence of increased unemployment? Option A is a fall in tax revenue for the government. Option B says a reduction in trade unions' influence. Option C says a fall in death rates. And option D says an increase in labor force. Now the question is asking us, what are one of the disadvantages of increased unemployment? When there is no employment, what's the bad thing that can happen? Is it a, now which one is not a bad thing? Take note of the not. You should always read questions carefully. It says which of the following is not a consequence? So all of these things are consequences except for one. So A says a fall in tax revenue for the government. Yes, if I don't have a job, the government cannot tax me. So if there are plenty people without jobs, there are plenty people that the government cannot get tax from. So it will reduce the tax revenue of the government. That's a consequence. Option B says reduction in trade unions' influence. Trade union involves the collective um, trade unions is a voluntary association of people with similar interests in order to achieve collective bargaining. So if there are not many people who are employed, they won't have that collective strength. Option C says a fall in death rates. People who are employed does not have direct effect on death rates. So that's not a consequence of unemployment. Whether you're employed or not, we are all going to die someday. Option D says an increase in the labor force. Yes, if there is unemployment, we have so much people who can be employed that are idle. So our correct answer, the item which is the odd one, is option C. Option C, a fall in death rate. Question number 31. The following are features of subsistence agriculture, except for one. Subsistence agriculture is small-scale agriculture, small-scale farming. So, which one is not a characteristic of small-scale farming? A, little capital. Yes, that's a characteristic. Option B, processing of raw materials. No, that's not. But let's see other options. Small allotments of land. Yes. And option D, use of crude implements. Yes. So the odd item is option B, the processing of raw materials. Small-scale farming do not engage in processing of raw materials. Question number 32. Which of the following is not true of small companies? A, they cannot benefit from economies of scale. Of course they can't. Option B, they are a good source of new jobs. Yes, because we have plenty small-scale companies that can come up. Option C, they can satisfy demand in specialist markets. Now, a specialist market is a market that does not have large buyers. So, because small-scale companies are easily set up and run, they can be used to address those specialist markets that does not produce large volume of goods. Option D says have a good record of technical innovation. No, many times they don't involve in innovations. They just use what have been innovated. So option D is not true about small scale or small companies. Option D is the odd one out. Question 33. The effect of privatization on the industrial sector of a country is that it dash. Is it that it ensures efficiency, or it discourages efficiency, or it leads to decrease in output, or it leads to liquidation? The effect of privatization in the industrial sector. What is privatization? Privatization is the change of ownership of formerly government-owned organization to private ownership. So, when privatization occurs, the ownership and management of organization moves from government to private individuals and firm. What is the effect of this? Does it ensure efficiency? I believe so. Option B says it discourages efficiency. No. Private sector run organizations are more efficient than government run organizations. Option C says it leads to decrease in output. No, because it leads to more efficiency, there is more output. And option D says it leads to liquidation. No, it doesn't lead to liquidation. So the correct answer here is that it ensures efficiency, because the private sector is focused or is aimed at profit maximization, and you can only get profit maximization when you are efficient in your production. So option A is our correct answer. Question 34. The production strategy used in an overpopulated country is dash. The production strategy used in an overpopulated country is dash. A says import substitution, B says capital intensive, C says labor intensive, and D says first come, first serve. Now, let's understand the question. The question says, which production strategy will you use in an overpopulated country? That means a country that has plenty people. So, if you have so much people in your environment and you want to clear an acre of land, would you go and hire a tractor and employ just one man? No, because you have excess people who are idle. You can afford to send 50 of them to the land to start clearing because you have so much people. So when you use a production system that use plenty human beings, because you have plenty of them around, we call that a labor intensive system. But if you use more machines, we call that capital intensive. So since you have plenty people lying around, you use more people, which is labor intensive. So our correct answer is option C. Option C. Question 35. National income is used to measure dash. Is it a country's population size? No, it's census that is used for that. B, a country's economic growth? Yes. Let's see other options. C says the human level of development. No, economic development is measured by a number of other indexes like human development index, literacy level, death rate, mortality rate, infant mortality, maternal mortality, and a number of others, not national income. Option D says the flow of imports in a country. You can't measure that with GDP, with your national income. You can measure that with maybe your balance of payments or your terms of trade. So your national income is used to measure a country's economic growth, because your economic growth is an increase in your national income, in the goods and services produced by a country. So our correct answer is option B. Option B. For those of you just joining us, my name is Mr. Emmanuel, the economics tutor at Insta School. At Insta School, we offer you interesting learning experiences that comes to you at the comfort of your home. We've been taking questions from 2011 UTME question, past WAEC question. In our last class, we took questions 1 to 25. And in this class, we'll be taking questions 26 to 50. And we're already down to question number 35. So let's continue with question number 26 from 2011 past WAEC questions. Question 36. A tax is regressive if dash. Is it when the rate of tax is constant at all income levels? No, that's not regressive. Option B says when rate of tax decreases as income increases. Option C says when rate of tax increases as income increases. And option D says when tax is direct rather than indirect. It's clearly not option D. Now, tax rates can be in three forms. It can either be proportional, progressive, or regressive. A proportional tax remains constant irrespective of the income levels. A progressive tax will increase as the income is increasing, but a regressive tax will increase as the income is reducing. So our correct answer is option B. The tax rate will be decreasing as income is increasing. It moves in opposite direction. Or the tax rate will be increasing as income is decreasing. So the correct answer is option B. Option B. Question 37. When a country's net income from abroad is added to its total output, the result is dash. Is it gross domestic product, net national product, gross national product, or net domestic product? Now, the net income from abroad means that the goods and services produced by your citizens in other countries minus the goods and services produced by foreigners in your country. When we add this to total output, which is normally the gross domestic product, we have, or we result, or the answer is our gross national product. Recall that our gross domestic product is the output of a country, the value of goods and services produced inside your country, within the borders of your country. When you add it to your net income from abroad, you get to have the goods and services produced by your citizens, irrespective of where they are. So GDP, or output, plus net income from abroad gives us GNP, gross national product. Question 38. A fall in national output will necessitate dash. If there is a fall in national output, what will it lead to? A rise in expenditure of imports. B, a rise in level of savings. C, an increase in the consumption of expenditure. Or D, a rise in the standard of living. When there is lower national outputs, and there's lower national outputs, it means that first, you cannot import more. You can't have more expenditures on inputs, because how would you pay for them? You don't have much output to exchange for it. Would it lead to a rise in level of savings? First is that it would lead to a fall in your consumption. It will lead to fall in your consumption. And recall that your income is shared between income and savings. So when your consumption falls, your savings increases. So it would not lead to an increase in consumption. It would lead to an increase in savings, because your consumption will reduce. So option B is the correct answer. Option C is wrong. Option D, a rise in the standard of living, not immediately. So option B is our correct answer. Question 39. The demand for money to take advantage of changes in bond prices is dash. Is it unforeseen motive, transaction motive, speculative motive, or precautionary motive? We treated this question, or a similar question, in one of our previous classes, and we said the demand for money to take advantage of future changes in price is the speculative motive of holding money. The transactionary motive is the demand for money to meet up with our day-to-day buying and selling, while the precautionary motive is the need for holding money for future unforeseen circumstances. It's nothing like unforeseen motive. So our correct answer is option C, speculative motive. Question 40. Cost push inflation is caused by dash. Cost push inflation is caused by dash. Cost push okay, A says rise in cost of production, B says decrease in cost of transportation, C says rise in demand for goods, and D says decrease in cost of production. Now, inflation generally has two main causes. We have the demand pull inflation, which we explained in one of our previous classes, and cost push inflation. Demand pull inflation is caused by increased demand for production, when there is much money in circulation and people are demanding for little goods that is available. But the cost push inflation, on the other hand, is caused by a continuous increase in the cost of production of the product. So the producers has no choice than to pass the increasing cost to the consumers in form of price. So what causes cost pushing pressure, inflation? It is clearly the rise in the cost of production. Because cost of production have increased, prices also have to increase. So a correct answer is option A. Option A. Question number 41. Deposits held in a commercial bank are part of dash. Deposits held in a commercial bank are part of dash. The money supply, transfer payments, ordinary shares, or treasury bills. This should be quite easy. Money in bank is clearly not treasury bills, because treasury bills are financial instruments. But deposits in bank is actual cash. Ordinary shares are unit of ownership in a company, not deposits. Transfer payments are payments made to persons or organizations or countries without any economic activity or returns from it. So take, for example, an uncle visits you and gives you 1,000 naira notes without you doing anything for him. That's transfer payment. Take, for example, an organization donates some foodstuff to an orphanage. That is transfer payments. Take, for example, a country sends money to Nigeria to help internet displaced person. That is transfer payments. Supply is the total amount of money in circulation in an economy, and this includes both the deposits in the bank and the currency in circulation. So our correct answer is option A. Option A. Question 42. One profitable form of business undertaken by the commercial bank is dash. A. Issuing of checks. B. Payment of standing order. C. Lending money to borrowers. And D. Accepting checks from customers. Now, this question is quite technical. Note that all of these listed are functions or businesses that the commercial banks undertake. They issue checks to people and they pay those checks on your behalf. They make payment for standing order and they equally make charges for that. They lend money to people and they accept checks from their customers. But the question says one profitable form of business. What is one business that is very profitable for banks? It is clearly the lending of money to borrowers. Now, when banks accept deposits from you and pays you a certain interest, but when they lend it out to borrowers, they charge higher interest on those money. That's a very profitable business for commercial banks. So our correct answer is option C. Option C. Question 43. When governments want to discourage consumption, they tax goods whose demand is dash. A. Price inelastic. B. Abnormal in nature. C. Price elastic. And D. Normal in nature. If government wants to discourage consumption, they tax goods whose demand is dash. If government does not want you to buy a particular product, which goods will they tax? That is, the government wants you to stop buying a product. Now, they are going to look at a goods that when the price increase, it will make you shake. So now, which goods will the demand shake if price increases? Please take notes. The correct answer here is price elastic. Correct answer is price elastic. Let me circle it for you to take notes. The correct answer is price elastic. Now, this is because for a price elastic demand, when price increases, the quantity demanded falls at a higher rate. So when government knows that this is what will happen, the government, which wants to discourage you from buying it before, will now tax those goods, and because they know that you will react, then their motive is achieved. You would stop buying those goods at a higher percentage changes. So the correct answer here is price elastic. Okay, so let's clean this. Question number 44. A rise in government expenditure can lead to dash. A rise in government expenditure. Will it lead to higher inflation, or to higher unemployment, or to lower profits for industries, or lower importation of raw materials for industries? Now, this should be quite easy. When government increases their expenditures, that means they have more money that they are putting into circulation, and this will lead to inflation. So it cannot lead to higher unemployment. Rather, it will lead to lower unemployment, because with more money in circulation, there will be more production, there will be more people who are engaged. So it's not option B. It cannot lead to lower profits for industries, because it doesn't affect them. In fact, it would rather lead to more profits for the industries, because they will be engaged in more activities. Neither would it affect importation of raw materials. So our correct answer is option A. It leads to higher inflation. Question 45. Tariff is used to protect domestic industries by making foreign goods relatively dash cheaper in the domestic market, or more expensive in the domestic market, or more expensive in the international market, or cheaper in the international market. Now, tariffs are duties that are charged on imported commodities. They serve a purpose of being a means of revenue to the government, but also serve as a means of increasing the price of those goods in the local market, so that it does not affect or becomes too competitive for local producers. So when you impose tariff on a commodity, the commodity will now have a higher price in the domestic market. I hope you understand that. Take, for example, a bottle of Pepsi used to cost 120 naira in the foreign market. So at the point of bringing it into the country, we place a 30 naira tariff on it, so that you can only sell it at 150. Now, this would make a bottle of Pepsi more expensive in the local market, but in the international market, it still remains 120. The effect is that, take for example, Biggie Cola cost them 140 naira to produce it. You see that if they bring Pepsi at 120, it will be difficult for Biggie Cola to sell their own. So that way, we have protected local industries. Now they can comfortably sell at 150 to make profits. So tariffs protect domestic industries by making foreign goods relatively more expensive in the local or domestic market. So our correct answer is option B. Question 46. The process of increasing the real per capita income and effecting changes in various sectors of the economy is known as dash. A. Economic acceleration, B. Economic development, C. Economic integration, and D. Economic growth. Economic acceleration involves the speeding up the improvement in a particular aspect of the economy. Economic development involves an all-round improvement, positive changes in the sectors that makes up the economy. Acceleration is targeted towards a particular sector. Development is all-round improvement and an increase in the per capita income. Economic integration involves the workings of the economy such that you work together with other countries. So you are not standing alone. Your country is working along with other countries, either it's in trade or in economic policies or different aspects. Economic growth is simply the increase in the outputs. So a process of increasing the real per capita income and affecting changes in various sectors of the economy is economic development. Option B. Option B. Question 47. Question 47 says, development plans in West Africa tend to deviate from their target, mainly due to dash. Political instability, lack of manpower, high population growth rates, or low level of education. In Africa, well, we may have low level of education, but is it the reason why we deviate from our plans? I don't think so. It's clearly not our population growth rate or lack of manpower. We actually have the manpower. One major problem of development plan in Africa is the political instability. Almost all African countries have experienced change in power in the past decades that have made it difficult to concentrate or to achieve the goals of their development plan. So when there's a change in government, the new government does not follow the development plan of the previous government. And this new government will start their own, but will not be able to finish it. And there will be another change of government, and the new government also would not finish their plan. So that is one that has been one major problem of development plans in West Africa. So our correct answer is option A, political instability. Question 48. The balance of trade is dash. What is the balance of trade? Is it an annual statement showing transactions within a country, or a relationship between a country's visible and invisible trade, both buying and selling, or a relationship between a country's receipt from visible and invisible trade? No. Or an account that shows a country's payment to another country. Now, option C and option D are taking only one part of our balance of trade. Our balance of trade actually takes into consideration the relationship between the receipts and the payment of visible and invisible trade. And that is why option B is the correct answer. It is the relationship between a country's visible and invisible trade. You know, trade covers both buying and selling. So our correct answer is option B. Question 49. And this is, as one of the instruments of commercial policy, quota is dash. Is it a qualitative restriction on imports, or a normal restriction, or a quantitative restriction, or an outright prohibition of imports? Now, a quota means giving specific persons a ceiling of a particular amount of products that they can import into a country. So take, for example, rice in Nigeria. The country would decide that only 3 people can import rice into the country, and each person can only import 1 metric tons of rice. That is what a quota means, or that is how quota works. So you see that it restricts the quantity that can be brought into the country. It does not outrightly prohibit bringing in the product into the country. So option D is not correct. It is not a normal restriction that you have, so option B is also not correct. It is not a qualitative restriction, because there is nothing that a quota talks about in the quality of what is brought. What it only talks about is the quantity that is brought in. So our correct answer is option C. It is a quantitative restriction on imports. And on to the final question, question number 50. This is, the full meaning of IMF is dash. Wow, such a simple question. Option A says the International Military Force. Clearly not. Option B says International Monetary Fund. Option C says International Mortgage Fund. And option D says International Monetary Financing. The IMF is a international economic organization that was established in 1945, but started work in 1946 as part of the World Bank Group. It was established for the development of all the countries that were its member countries, and to assist developing countries in their part of development. The full meaning of IMF is the International Monetary Fund. So our correct answer is option B. Option B. So that brings us to the end of questions on 2011 past WAEC questions. It's been nice having you here, and I'm sure you also enjoyed every bit of the lesson. In our next class, we'll be going further to questions from 2012 WAEC questions. You can follow us on our social media platform. On Facebook and Instagram, we are at instaschool_edu. And on Twitter, we are at instaschool. So follow us, like our page, drop your comments and questions so that you get to know about our various services, our promotional offers, and fun learning facts. Thank you for joining us in this class. Do have a nice time. Bye.